What happens when two teenagers turn a sleepover into a premeditated execution? When friendship becomes a trap and greed becomes the motive for murder? Today, you'll witness how a quiet Ohio town was shattered by betrayal, and how a teenage killer learned he was facing death, and it was all caught on tape. Now, let's dive into the disturbing case of Justin Back, a teenager whose life was stolen by those he trusted most. Welcome to Crime Cipher, where we uncover real cases that expose the darkest corners of the human mind. If true crime without sugarcoating is your thing, hit subscribe, tap the bell, and drop your theory in the comments, because these stories deserve to be remembered. The call that changed everything. On January 28, 2014, in Warren County, Ohio, police received a 911 call that seemed standard, a missing teenager. But when officers arrived at the Westville home of 18-year-old Justin Back, nothing about the scene felt ordinary. His phone rang endlessly without response, and the entire house looked disturbed, as if something violent had happened. His parents had just returned home to find him gone. Within minutes, worry turned into horror. Justin's stepfather, Mark Cates, noticed strange stains on the floor. Officers quickly confirmed they were blood, and not just drops but smears that stretched across multiple rooms. The kitchen showed signs of a brutal cleanup, with enough blood to suggest someone had died. Suddenly, the missing person case turned into something far darker. Investigators described the scene as an emotional horror. The blood was so extensive, it soaked under furniture, leading one officer to remark it was the worst domestic scene he had ever encountered. This wasn't an accident. It was execution-level violence, masked by teen faces and a suburban neighborhood. Two friends, one suspicion. Police began their investigation by asking who had last seen Justin. Two names came up almost immediately: Austin Myers and Timothy Mosley. They were friends of Justin and had visited the house the same day he went missing. Timothy's black Chevy Impala had even been spotted in the driveway earlier by neighbors. That detail was enough for officers to act. In the early hours of January 29th, both Austin and Timothy were arrested from their homes. Detectives had no clear picture yet, but one thing was certain: these two held the answers, and before the night was over, one of them would start talking. Silent, then speaking. Austin Myers was brought in first. Calm and composed, he listened to his rights and asked for a lawyer. But just 2 hours later, something shifted. He returned to the interview room ready to talk. He began by saying that he and Timothy had only planned to visit Justin casually, maybe hang out and watch cartoons. But then, as he claimed, things spiraled out of control. His demeanor raised red flags. He wasn't crying. He wasn't panicked. He was calm, almost rehearsed. Investigators now know this is typical of sociopathic behavior, especially among high-functioning youth offenders. What he lacked in remorse, he made up for in manipulation. Austin described a sudden attack by Timothy, using a metal wire to strangle Justin. Austin said he froze, too shocked to help or run, but as Justin gasped, asking why and please help, Austin remained still. According to him, fear took over, and he just followed along with whatever Timothy said next. The cover-up begins. Austin claimed Timothy told him they had to clean everything now that Justin was dead. The two wiped down floors, dragged the body, and tried to make it all look like a runaway case. They wrapped Justin's body in a blanket and put him in the trunk of a car. Austin said they even gathered some of Justin's clothes to support the lie. But police were already doubting Austin's passive role. His story had gaps. More importantly, someone else was listening to that interview through the wall. Timothy Mosley, and what he heard pushed him over the edge. A breaking point confession. Timothy snapped. Listening to Austin shift the blame onto him, he asked to speak with detectives immediately. What followed was a confession so detailed, it painted a completely different story. According to Timothy, this murder wasn't spontaneous. It was a well-planned heist, crafted entirely by Austin. Austin had told him about a safe in Justin's house, filled with money. He had 3 separate murder plans, including injecting Justin with NyQuil and syringes. They bought supplies together. This wasn't panic, it was premeditated. And Timothy said Austin had even considered killing Justin's stepfather to make sure there were no witnesses. The failed first attempt. The night before the murder, the boys had visited Justin to test their plan. But Austin panicked and failed to use the syringe. The plan was postponed. The next day they returned, this time with a new strategy. Strangle Justin, stab him, clean the scene, and make it look like he ran away. When Justin opened the door, he welcomed two friends. They watched a movie together. Then suddenly, Timothy approached from behind with the wire. Justin fought back. Austin grabbed his arms. Timothy stabbed him. The attack was savage, with Justin pleading for his life. They overpowered him, and eventually, Austin used the wire to finish what Timothy had started, a cold final act. With the house soaked in blood, the two teens cleaned up using ammonia and gloves they had bought earlier. They placed Justin's body in the trunk, drove to Crybaby Bridge, an eerily quiet spot in West Alexandria, and dumped him behind a log. But Austin wasn't done. As Timothy returned to the car, Austin pulled out a gun and shot Justin's lifeless body twice in the chest. This wasn't necessary. This wasn't cover-up. It was rage, control, and possibly pleasure. Experts later testified that this overkill was indicative of emotional detachment and desire for dominance over the victim, even in death. This act, so unnecessary, so cruel, became key in the trial. It revealed not fear, but satisfaction. Police began to believe that Austin wasn't just involved. He was the engine of the entire crime. The image falls apart. Despite trying to paint himself as a bystander, Austin couldn't keep up the act. Surveillance footage showed both boys buying murder supplies before the attack. He wasn't reacting, he was planning. Police also found evidence that Austin was unusually cold during interrogations. When asked why he wasn't upset, he said, "I see emotion as weakness." This statement, combined with everything else, shifted how investigators and prosecutors viewed him. He wasn't manipulated, he was manipulating. Courtroom war, Austin versus Timothy. The courtroom became a battlefield, not just the state versus Myers and Mosley, but Austin versus Timothy. Timothy admitted to his role, took a plea deal, and testified against Austin. He said he was pulled into the crime and didn't understand the gravity until it was too late. Austin's defense team, however, claimed he was emotionally overwhelmed and scared, that Timothy was the violent one. But the evidence told another story. Austin planned the robbery, bought the tools, pushed for the killing, and even suggested killing his own parents afterward to avoid getting caught. Justice delivered. The jury didn't take long to decide. Timothy Mosley was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Austin Myers, however, received the harshest punishment allowed by law, the death penalty. He became the youngest person on death row in Ohio. During sentencing, prosecutors described him as emotionless, calculating, and dangerous. In his final plea, Austin said, "If you choose for me to die, it won't hurt me. It'll only hurt another family." But those words rang hollow. For the Back family, justice was long overdue. And for Justin, whose final words were why, the truth was finally known. Evil doesn't always come with a warning. Sometimes it walks through the front door wearing a familiar face. This case proves that even the people we trust the most can hide the darkest intentions. What do you think? Did Austin deserve the death penalty? Or was Timothy just as guilty? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe to Crime Cipher for weekly cases that dive deep into motive, mind, and manipulation.